Hiya guys, it's SpectreGaming here. This is something I've been asked to do by my community because there's quite a few people who want to know more about Total War Warhammer 2 and going into Total War Warhammer 3, about the races, where to start as a campaign as a new player. Obviously, if you're new to this type of game or you're new to grand strategy in general, start on the easy difficulties. You've got easy, normal, until you're used to those, then move into hard, and then very hard, legendary are the two hardest difficulties. They're like the same. The main difference between very hard, legendary is in legendary you can't do any manual saves. You've only got your auto save at the start of each new turn, and it's not a bad thing, but you can have crashes occur, or sometimes there's a bug where you can want to fight a battle and it auto resolves a battle for you and you lose your army. If that happens in a legendary campaign and it's early on, your campaign's basically over. So for multiplayer aspects, which is what this is more aimed at, I probably wouldn't go into legendary at all. I'd stay at very hard when you go towards the highest. But learning it and getting into the game is something we're going to do. Obviously, I'm not playing on the Vortex and talk about Mortal Empires. So when the Mortal Empires version for Warhammer 3 comes out, you're going to have access to all these playable characters here with the appropriate DLCs that you've bought, plus the new ones from Total Warhammer 3. So you're going to have potentially 80, 81 playable factions, because at the moment you've got 69, with 11 coming out on release, and there's rumours of a free LC faction as well. So there's going to be a lot of variety to play. So what I'm going to go through here is my opinion. I've been playing the game for 2,700 hours. Between Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, I've done over 3,000 hours. And I've played from easy all the way to very hard, and I've even done some campaigns in Legendary. I'm going to go from left to right, just to keep it simple, make it easy, and explain little bits about, not the individual lords, but the faction themselves. So High Elves, most of them have reasonably good starting locations, except Teclis and Imric. Teclis and Imric have quite difficult starting locations. Teclis is down here, off the coast of Lustria. It's a horrible place to start. And Imric starts over here near Clan of Shin and Malus Darkblade on the far side of the fucking world. It's a bad area to be. The others basically all start near Ulthuan, so you've got allies nearby. Elves as a faction are really strong. They've got good range units, good melee units, and they've got good magic. You don't have to use magic with the High Elves. I've done many campaigns without using magic, just to prove that it can be done. Because people overuse magic. Magic in this game is really, really strong, but it also can carry you through battles that you might otherwise win a bit more closely or lose. And if you become magic reliant, and you then enter an area where there's like low winds of magic, or your magic's getting sapped by a unit in the enemy army, you can suddenly find yourself falling on your arse a little bit. So it's tricky. Lizardmen, also a good faction. I've not played the new guy, because I'm not a massive Lizardman fan, but I've played all the others. You've got Mundis like your Spellcaster, you've got Krotgar, and Gorok, and Nakai are big melee fighters. Nakai's weird though. I wouldn't recommend playing Nakai for your first Lizardman try, because he's supposed to be like a horde army, but he doesn't work like a horde army, because he puts one of his own settlements down. He doesn't have a way of making a great deal of money. So Nakai's a very strange faction. I think they need to rework Nakai personally, and either make him a pure horde army like Chaos and Beastmen, or make him have his own settlements. It's very odd. He's neither here nor there. He's a bit weird. And then you've got the Skink Lords here. They have a variety. They haven't got as good range units as the High Elves. And only artillery they've got is from a big Stegoron, like a big bolt thrower on its back. But they've got a lot of really strong melee units. You can make some nice armies. And again, they can have some decent magic, so they're pretty good. Dark Elves, probably was the strongest evil faction. It's probably now second strongest to Beastmen. But they can have some truly nasty armies. You don't even need to recruit from your settlements once you've got your first Black Ark. Get your first Black Ark, get it upgraded, and just use your cities to generate gold and are basically maintain slaves, which gives you even more money basically. They've got strong magic, strong melee units, strong range units. One of the most broken things is you can have like a front line of blackguard, 4 or 5 blackguard, and then shades. Lots of shades, especially shades with great swords, because they're armor piercing missiles as well as armor piercing in combat. And they can vanguard and stalk. Vanguard means you can deploy closer towards enemy. Now you might think that's a bit strange for a range unit, but then you can use that to take out the AI's artillery. So like if you're against Empire, you can't outrange a Hellstorm rocket battery, which is the longest ranged artillery in the game. But if you deploy on the line with your shades, you can destroy it in probably 1 or 2 salvos. And they're gone, you fall back. You might have to have some shades hold up some of the Empire cavalry while you bring the backguard forward. Simple tactic, easily repeatable, very strong. And they're not that hard to get to either in terms of like a unit. You ain't gotta wait for like late game. They've got a variety of starting locations. Malekith's is strong, Marath's is strong. She can have quite a few enemies nearby though. Krun Hellebond's is quite strong. Malice is weird because again he spawns down there where Emmerich spawns here, so he like spawns miles out of the way. And Skaven are a pain in the arse to deal with. Rakarth's in a weird location as well because he's here and not on Karundkar where it should be. And then Loki's probably got the hardest start down here. He's got a bit of a strange one. But they're all very strong, very good factions. Skaven. Skaven are different. Skaven, you have an extra resource that other factions don't have called food. You need 1 food to basically maintain 1 army as well as 1 town or city. Now you can build a basically an underground settlement through your warlock engineers, and it's called the Under Empire. It's this here. You can build these. The idea how you want to build them, you want to build them far enough away that you're not going to be occupying it when you start to expand. And that way you can build it. Normally you want to build the 2 buildings that make it harder to detect your Under Empire, otherwise it can be destroyed. But then you want to build one of the ones for food, and there's one that can make it expand to adjacent provinces for free. A 5% chance a turn. 5% sounds low, but believe me, I've had 3 spawn in 1 turn. Ridiculous. Once you've got a few of those, you can get rid of that building and you can build a second food building. Then you've got 5 food from 1 Undercity or Under Empire. So you can build those and make it work really, really well. They have good units. They can be a bit hard to use, really strong magic. Skaven are one of the armies that more need to use magic as opposed to don't. They do have quite a bit of a reliance on magic. But you also have a thing called loyalty, which the Dark Elves also have, and missed that. You have a thing for loyalty for generals of armies that aren't your primary general. So basically, like this is Ikitclaw. He wouldn't have any loyalty, but other people he recruits would. You can maintain it by putting a chieftain in there. He has a trait that gives him like +1 loyalty a turn. Dark Elves can get a follower, which you can equip to other heroes in the Lord, and that gives you +1 loyalty a turn. So you can kind of maintain it relatively easily. Deathmaster don't have the loyalty problem, as it says here. Clan Ishin Lords never defect because of loyalty. But Ishin can't build all the other units these ones can without a massive upkeep penalty, because he's got a strange campaign how it works. So if you do venture into Skaven at some point, don't make Ishin your first choice. Play one of the others. Tretch has quite a hard starting location because near Dark Elves, and because they can get shades really early on. You've not got much to come with the deal with shades, they will fuck you up. Skrulk's starting location isn't great either, because you've got Dark Elves here with Lokia, High Elves here with Teclis, and you've got Gorok here. So you've got a bit of a dicey start location. So your best options are probably going to be Queek, Ikitclaw, and, well, maybe Throt. Yeah, Throt's not bad.
Always hungry.
Now, here's where my opinion starts to change.
All mine.
I hate most of the undead. The main reason for that is they look good on paper and perform like shit in the battles. And by shit, I mean dog shit. They are terrible. Probably the worst units in the game. They are heavily reliant upon magic, because they can use the vampire lore to heal units and bring troops back, but then you need the spells to inflict the bulk of your damage because units are so bad. And you can even build what they refer to as a doom stack, which is a thing called like a Necrophex Colossus. It's a ship that's walking upright and basically has a cannon arm on its right hand. It's like a fucking Warhammer Fantasy version of Optimus Prime. And even those aren't that good. You can still get beat with an army of those. Bretonnian anti-large armies, high elves fielding those dragons and phoenixes. And you will encounter these in the high difficulties. So I do not like these as a faction. I've played them all, I've tried them all. I do not enjoy playing them. But that's obviously my opinion. You might like playing them. But I'm just giving you my opinion on what I've tried. I have a similar problem here with Khemri. They're not as bad because they've got arch armies that you can make work, but they still are heavily reliant upon magic, and they are a bit finicky to play. And some of the units that do look really awesome don't perform that well in battle. Empire
Summon the Elector Counts.
are a good average army. They've got some good melee units and cavalry, and then some good range units. And they've got the longest ranged artillery in the game, the Hellstorm rocket barrier, which I mentioned earlier. With these you can build a good variety army, because the Doom Stack for the Empire is a balanced army. You have a front line, some handgunners, some crossbowmen, some artillery, and then you can stick a mage in there if you want to. And with that they can do well against most people. Dwarves, probably one of the strongest good guy factions in the game, if not the strongest. They've got really strong front line. You can have all quarrelers if you want. You can have a few thunderers, which is their version of handgunners, and quarrelers, and then a couple of artillery at the back. Dwarves don't have magic though, so they have no mages. But they don't need them. They can win battles fine without them, and the auto resolve they are ridiculously strong, too strong in fact, to be completely honest. So if you're new starting to the game, dwarves are a good chance to start. So are the high elves. For the bad guys, probably dark elves or beastmen. Because beastmen, because they're reworked, one of the strongest factions in the game. But beastmen are a horde army, so they do play a bit differently. They don't occupy settlements, they destroy them in an area. Only thing they raise is a herdstone, which kind of acts like a building, but you only have so many. You can't just direct them wherever the fuck you want. Greenskins are better after their rework, but they are still weak. And surprisingly, they do need magic. They do actually need magic. You do need a shaman in probably each army. And that would be an orc shaman, not a goblin shaman. The orc shamans have a much better lore of magic, where you can use something called the Foot of Gork. But yeah, you do need a shaman in each army, unfortunately. I'm playing a very hard campaign at the moment on YouTube, and that was testing the greenskins without a shaman, and it's not easy. I've not lost any battles, but I don't think I'm going to win that campaign because the Empire, Dwarven, and High Elf tide have got rolling, and my allies are completely useless. And because I'm intentionally nerfing myself by not using shamans, the only magic I've got is River Troll Hag, and her magic isn't that good, in all honesty. Most of these will play kind of okay. Grom can have a somewhat difficult campaign. He starts in Bretonnia here, and you'll want to be basically getting yourself over to Ulthuan. Skarsnik has got a really hard campaign because he starts with the town and not a city, and he can't recruit any orc units, only goblin units. But he does start with a Ragnarok Spider, which is a really strong unit. But he's got Empire everywhere, he's got dwarves to his side, he's got wood elves behind him and Bretonnians. He's surrounded by enemies on all sides. So he's a very, very difficult campaign, even veteran players. So I wouldn't recommend playing him as your first greenskin choice if you decide to go that direction. Onto vampires. Again, these are very similar to Vampire Coast, but they're more land-based. They again are very, very weak. They have strong lords and strong heroes, the same as Vampire Coast, but their units are shit. But the meta these days to play vampires is you don't build any of their elite units like Vargulfs. You instead build an army of skeletons. You can get research for skeletons to make them free, so they don't cost you anything. So basically, the entire army is free apart from the lords and heroes. And you basically chuck in your lord, a necromancer, a vampire, and maybe a white king. And you have your banshees for your scouts to go out and assassinate enemy heroes and stuff. And basically, you are relying completely upon magic to win you the battles. If you have no magic, you've lost. And undead are super weak in both battle and in auto-resolve. I had a battle not long ago where I was playing Drycha. I had Dryads, Treekin, Treemen, which is what you'll probably build with Drycha. Moved them into Sylvania and I auto-resolved, in very hard difficulty, 4 Vampire Count armies. And some of those had Mortis Engines, Vargulfs, Black Guard, Black Knights, and I auto-resolved them and didn't lose a single unit. That's how weak undead are. And if that's in very hard difficulty, it ain't looking good for vampires. That's all I can say. So these are really difficult to play. So I wouldn't consider playing these until you've won several campaigns. And certainly wouldn't try these for the first time in like hard or higher. If you want to try them in like normal or something like that. Because they're a pain in the arse to play. Wolfric and Throg, the Norscan factions at the moment, they are actually quite strong. The thing that makes them weak is in the harder difficulties, supply lines. Because they don't have a way to make a lot of money. It's more based on raiding and sacking things. And that's been changed somewhat in Warhammer 3, which is what this is more aiming towards. So in Warhammer 3 you've got 8-player co-op. So a lot of new people are going to be getting into the game. That's the purpose of this video. So this is a way to try and help them out with some of the Warhammer 2 factions. Even though some of these factions might change a little bit. But supply lines is currently set at 15% in very hard legendary. It's been reduced to 4% in very hard legendary in Warhammer 3, making these much more viable. But they do have good units. Bretonnians, they have at the moment the strongest cavalry in the game. But basically their armies are built around cavalry. You can build a peasant army with archers and trebuchets, but they are a bit more awkward to use. The best armies are like Grail Knights, Grail Guardians, Royal Hippogriff Knights, Raw Pegasus Knights. Basically, you just take your best units and you just walk over the enemy. Strong heroes and lords, they've got magic again, which you can use. In this type of army though, rather than going offensive magic, you'd probably go healing magic and just heal up your units as they get injured. But they are a little bit awkward to play when you've got armies of entirely composed of cavalry pretty much, but they are strong with the right units. Wood Elves are weird, because you've got ones like Durthu and Drycha, who are, well, trees, and they recruit all types of tree king, where the Sisters of Twilight and Orion are, well, actually he's not an elf, he's a demigod, but they're elves, and they can recruit some good units, don't have any artillery. Again, they might have a certain reliance upon magic, especially it would help them in sieges, where they're quite weak. When you occupy a province though that's not a great tree, it only becomes like a little minor rinky-dink settlement, and because settlements don't have anything you can use at the moment like walls, their settlements are really hard to defend, but also they only get like 5 or 6 units. So if you get attacked by an army of like 15 or more, you probably aren't winning that battle. Unless it's full of like really, really bad units. Beastmen were the weakest faction in the game. Since their rework, they are the strongest faction in the game. They are one of my favourite factions to play now, because I prefer playing melee armies as opposed to ranged. Melee requires a bit more skill to play than ranged. Ranged, you can just sit in a corner, rely on your front line to hold, cast magic, like your ranged units murder everything. It's really easy. Not that fun. Melee, you've got to think a bit more, and you're going to take some damage on the way in from ranged armies. So, I do like my melee guys, especially when they can get off an ambush. Ambushes are disgusting. All of these are strong. Strong units. How the faction works is strong. Putting down a herdstone and stopping a certain area from being able to be recolonised, really strong. That's what I'm hoping Chaos will have in Warhammer 3, where they can either erect like a Chaos Shrine to do the same thing as the Beastmen's herdstone, or occupy a settlement in some way, I don't know. Chaos are also strong, but you need to build certain units for them to work. But the campaigns are quite frustrating, because unlike the Beastmen, the Empire, Dwarves, things like that will run past you with armies and recolonise settlements you've just destroyed. And if you don't go back and destroy them, you can't wipe out the faction. And you need to wipe out certain factions in order to win the game. So they can be quite annoying to play because they have no way to stop recolonisation of settlements. But if you're playing Chaos, 2 armies that work. Shaggoths are your Doomstack, but it doesn't require a great deal of skill to play with the Doomstack because it almost plays itself. If you want to play the way I've been playing one of my very hard campaigns recently, you can use Chosen with great weapons on foot. Extremely strong, will kill anything. And then the other half of your army is Chaos Knights, and take 1 unit of armoured Chaos Trolls. That's purely to bring down the gates fast for the Chaos Knights. And when you do a siege, you'll build 2 to 4 siege towers, and you'll send your Chosen over the walls on the other side of the city. And basically, Chaos Knights take one side of the city, the Chosen take the other. I've had in my campaign where I've gone up against half Doomstacks. Alethanok came at me with 8 dragons and a eagle. Not to mention Phoenix Guard and Sister of Avalon for the other part of his army. And my Chosen stood in the middle of the battlefield, killing everything that came near them. There were dead dragons everywhere. Chosen are extremely underrated, and if you use them properly, they will perform. Especially when maxed out, they have 77 melee attack and 76 melee defense. That is the highest of any infantry in the game, and they will butcher everything if you use them properly. And if you want to play with a bit more skill on the side of it. Also, I'm making it harder for myself again, because I'm not using any Chaos Sorcerers. I've only got option of 2 heroes, a Chaos Sorcerer and an Exalted Champion. So I've got an Exalted Champion in my army, rather than a Sorcerer. Because you need to have one as a scout. You need to have scouts to scout out ahead of your army so you don't walk into 3 or 4 Empire armies or something like that. But normally you would take the Exalted Champions as your scouts, and then a Sorcerer in your army. And Sorcerers are also quite good in sieges. They're not actually as good in the battles for this army because you attack really quickly. You can't go dropping flame storms when your troops are everywhere because you'll kill your own army. But in a city, when they all bunch up behind the walls and they stay still, magic's a free reign of damage, which is where magic can really come into its own. It's a bit longer than I planned anyway, but I hope this has explained things. If you guys want to ask any questions or if there's anything you think I might have missed, just let me know in the comments section down below and I'll answer your question. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you are new around here, please drop me a subscription. Helps grow my channel. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you all in the next video. Take care everyone and have a great day.